Science has always led us to incredible discoveries, but not every scientist fully grasped the risks involved in their experiments. In the past, some of these attempts flirted with the apocalyptic, from nuclear tests that could have ignited the atmosphere to artificial black holes threatening to swallow the planet. Let's dive into some experiments that came terrifyingly close to going horribly wrong. The hole to hell? Back in the 1960s, during the height of the Cold War, the US and the Soviet Union weren't just racing to space. They were also competing to see who could dig the deepest hole into the Earth. While the Americans abandoned their project in 1976 due to budget constraints, the Soviets pushed forward until 1994. The result? The Kola Super Deep Borehole, an insane 7.5 miles deep. To put that into perspective, that's deeper than the Mariana Trench. Scientists were thrilled, but some religious folks feared the Soviets were literally drilling a gateway to hell. The project was ultimately shut down when temperatures reached a scorching 356 degrees Fahrenheit, far hotter than expected. In the end, the portal was sealed up, and no demons were spotted escaping from below. Soviet biological weapons. At the tail end of the Cold War, a Soviet defector named Vladimir Pasechnik revealed a terrifying secret. The USSR had a covert biological weapons program. In secret labs, they were developing viruses and bacteria resistant to vaccines and antibiotics. The goal? To create weapons capable of wiping out entire populations. Their favorite bacterium? Yersinia pestis, the same one that caused the bubonic plague, which wiped out about 60% of Europe in the 14th century. The idea of a round two of this pandemic is chilling. After the Soviet Union collapsed in 1992, these labs were shut down, but to this day, no one knows the full scale of the project, or if something similar still exists. The devastating power of fungi. Think plagues only threaten humans? Think again. 3 staple crops sustain humanity: wheat, corn, and rice. Now imagine if a devastating fungus wiped them all out. The US actually considered using this as a biological weapon. Declassified Cold War documents revealed that scientists explored ways to spread deadly fungi over enemy crops. If a super-resistant strain had been created and unleashed, it could have triggered mass starvation. Thankfully, there's no record of such an agricultural weapon ever being used, so we can continue enjoying our pizza without fear. Aliens and lost space signals. In 2020, the US Department of Defense released Navy footage showing UFOs moving in ways that defied known physics, zipping around at insane speeds and changing direction instantly. Meanwhile, NASA has spent decades searching for extraterrestrial life through the SETI program, but so far, no response. Impatient scientists, however, decided to take things into their own hands. They started sending messages directly into space. That might sound harmless, but what if the aliens on the receiving end aren't friendly? Since there are no regulations on this, anyone with a powerful enough transmitter could send a cosmic hello. Let's just hope that if something is out there, it has a good sense of humor. The bomb that could have fried the Earth. Before detonating the first nuclear bomb in history during the infamous Trinity test in 1945, some scientists considered a terrifying possibility. What if the explosion triggered a chain reaction that set Earth's entire atmosphere on fire? Physicist Edward Teller himself raised this concern, and early calculations suggested that while the risk was low, it wasn't zero. Still, the project moved forward. On the day of the test, some scientists even placed bets on whether the world would be vaporized or not. Thankfully, the planet remained intact, but the success of Trinity marked the beginning of the nuclear age, sparking an arms race and the development of increasingly destructive bombs. If the idea of an explosion that could have literally ended the world isn't enough to send chills down your spine, just remember, today we have bombs thousands of times more powerful than that first one. And to this day, humanity keeps playing with fire. Man-made black holes. In 1999, New York witnessed the opening of the Relativistic Heavy Ion Collider, RHIC, a particle collider so powerful it made the world hold its breath. The goal? To accelerate charged particles, the basic building blocks of all matter, up to nearly the speed of light, a modest 186,000 miles per second, and smash them together in spectacular collisions. These collisions would create miniature fireballs so dense and hot that they could recreate the conditions of the Big Bang. But before scientists could pop the champagne, a rather alarming concern emerged. What if these collisions created miniature black holes? In astrophysics, black holes are infamous for their ability to swallow everything around them with an intense gravitational field. Even an atom-sized black hole would have the mass equivalent of Mount Everest. In theory, something like that could start devouring Earth from the inside out. Luckily, the risk was infinitesimal. So infinitesimal that 10 years later, an even bigger collider entered the scene. The Large Hadron Collider, LHC, in Geneva, Switzerland. With an impressive 17-mile circumference, its particles could complete 11,000 laps in the circuit in the blink of an eye before being smashed together. Of course, new risks arose. One theory suggested that these collisions could generate strangelets, hyper-dense particles capable of turning Earth into a 300-foot wide marble. But, as you can see, we're still here, safe and sound. Well, if New York or Geneva ever start mysteriously disappearing, we'll know why. Man-made tsunamis. New Zealand is famous for its hobbits and breathtaking landscapes. But in 1944, during World War II, it was part of a bizarre experiment. Project SEAL, an attempt to create artificial tsunamis to wipe out enemy bases. Scientists knew that underwater earthquakes could generate massive tsunamis up to 100 feet tall, capable of surging 10 miles inland. So they thought, what if we made this happen artificially? The answer was simple. Explosives. Lots of them. In the depths of the South Pacific, they set off 3,700 explosions, testing different amounts of TNT, from a few ounces to tons. In the end, they discovered that a precisely timed sequence of 10 bombs, placed across 5 miles, each packed with 2,200 tons of TNT, could generate a 40-foot wave. But there was a catch. If the bomb placement wasn't perfect, the wave lost its power. And as the war neared its end, the project was scrapped. Thankfully, imagine a world where any lunatic with dynamite could unleash a devastating tsunami. Project Volcano. If tsunamis and black holes weren't terrifying enough, how about an artificial earthquake? In the 1980s, the Soviet Union experimented with seismic weapons through Project Mercury, aimed at triggering earthquakes anywhere in the world. The tests were so successful that they paved the way for something even more dangerous. Project Volcano. Rumors suggest that the Soviets' ultimate goal was to detonate a nuclear bomb beneath the Yellowstone supervolcano in the US. If that volcano erupted, the devastation would be 1,000 times greater than a typical eruption. A colossal ash cloud would block sunlight, triggering a global volcanic winter and wiping out crops. The result? Planet-wide famine. Fortunately, the Soviet Union collapsed before this insane plan became a reality. Blowing up space. In the 1960s, the US decided to take nuclear warfare to a whole new level, literally. In 1962, they detonated a nuclear bomb in space as part of Operation Starfish Prime. The goal was to test the effects of radiation on Earth's magnetic field. But what actually happened was far worse than anyone anticipated. The bomb, 500 times more powerful than the one dropped on Hiroshima, exploded 250 miles above the planet. creating a glow so intense it lit up the night sky for a full 15 minutes. Beyond the dazzling light show, the explosion generated an electromagnetic pulse, EMP, that knocked out radios, alarms, and streetlights in Hawaii. Worse yet, the blast created an artificial radiation belt around Earth, which lingered for 10 years, damaging critical satellites. Had Earth's magnetic field been permanently compromised, we would have lost our protection against deadly cosmic rays. Within a few years, space radiation could have wiped out all life on the planet. The scare was so big that in 1967, the Outer Space Treaty was signed, banning nuclear weapons in space. Phew. Hurricane control experiments. In the 1940s, American scientists attempted something even more ambitious: controlling hurricanes. The plan sounded simple. Since hurricanes form from warm air rising and cool air sinking, they tested whether dumping dry ice minus 109 degrees Fahrenheit into a storm could weaken it. In 1947, during Project Cirrus, a plane dropped 180 pounds of dry ice into a hurricane over the Atlantic. What happened next was a complete disaster. Instead of weakening, the hurricane abruptly changed course and headed straight for Savannah, Georgia, causing $2 million in damages, about $24 million today. The government denied everything, but years later, the truth came out. Operation Big Base, the mosquito nightmare. The United States has always taken pride in its advancements in weaponry over the past century, but there's one experiment they'd rather the world forget. Back in the 1950s, the chemical company Michael Kors, yes, really, secretly tested the use of animals as weapons. And no, we're not talking about battle-trained dogs or laser-equipped cats, though that would be something. We're talking about something much smaller: mosquitoes. That's right. America tried to turn the most annoying creatures on the planet into biological weapons. Mosquitoes are natural carriers of various diseases that don't affect them but can be deadly to humans, like yellow fever. This hemorrhagic disease can kill in about 10 days and has caused devastating epidemics worldwide. So, the company had a simple but terrifying idea. What if they released a swarm of infected mosquitoes over enemy territory? It could be a powerful and silent weapon. But how do you test something like this? Well, the answer was as horrifying as it was absurd. They tested it on American civilians. In 1955, Operation Big Base was launched with the release of over 300,000 non-infected mosquitoes in Savannah, Georgia. Yes, the same city that, years later, was hit by the infamous Project Cirrus. Talk about bad luck. But the testing didn't stop there. In 1956, another 600,000 mosquitoes were released in residential areas of Avon Park, Florida. Scientists wanted to see how many of these mosquitoes could invade homes and bite residents, using traps placed around the city. In the end, they reached a terrifying conclusion. Releasing infected mosquitoes would be extremely effective and, even worse, would cost just 29 cents per victim. But there was one massive problem. Mosquitoes don't come with an off switch. Once released, they could reproduce uncontrollably and create monstrous infestations, spreading diseases across entire continents. Luckily, according to official records, none of these biological weapons were ever actually used. In 1972, this type of weaponry was officially banned. But did that really stop any country from trying something similar in secret? No one can say for sure. So, if mosquito nets and bug spray aren't already on your apocalypse survival list, now might be a good time to reconsider. What do you think was the riskiest experiment of all? A portal to hell? A biological apocalypse? An intergalactic war? Or a nuclear barbecue? Either way, we're lucky to still be here telling these stories.